Welcome to the Think Before You Post podcast, Season 2.
Woohoo!
Did y'all not
Season
think
2?
that we had stopped doing a podcast?
I just never knew that we'd finished Season 1.
Well, either did I.
Right?
And yet we got an email, maybe, from someone in this room who said we were doing it again and that we would be recording weekly.
This is awesome.
Weekly.
I agreed to it. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm going to be gone for the next 3 weeks.
Well, we're not doing it without you.
We're not actually
Okay,
recording
Oh, and
weekly.
you know what? Not only that, but in our new
And look,
studio.
if you're watching on YouTube,
Yes.
you will notice that we are in a new location.
legit.
We are.
So the theme of today's podcast is we're going to keep an open mind.
Okay.
Can everybody at the table agree to
Yes.
Try.
You're
I'll
gonna-
agree to
you're gonna-
try.
Okay, you're going to try. And let me just say about this new setup, I thought I was going to like it more because at our old setup, what y'all didn't know was that there was a bar that I had to rest my knees on. And I thought, oh, we're in a new set. I won't be having to work around table legs. And yet here I am again working between table legs. So if I kick the table,
Okay.
don't worry. Theme for this episode is we're going to keep an open mind.
All right.
Okay.
But first, as we're keeping that open mind, news broke last week that Seattle Public Schools are trying a new thing, and it's going to be fun to watch. Seattle Public Schools, if you both read the article, and you told me you did.
We did.
We did.
Seattle Public Schools have filed a lawsuit against all the major social media platforms. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Why Facebook? Because anyway, YouTube, Snapchat, all of them. Now, what's unique about this is they're not filing a lawsuit because of what's being said on any of the platforms. Instead, they're going at it. Their lawsuit is about the architecture, the way all these platforms are designed.
Like the algorithms?
The algorithms, yeah. So they say, and I'm gonna read this from the lawsuit. The lawsuit says that from 2009 to 2019, there was on average a 30% increase in the number of Seattle Public School students who reported feeling, quote, so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row. And that 30% increase means that not only Seattle Public Schools, but school districts all over the country are having to address the mental health impact that social media is having on their students.
Right.
And Seattle finally just raised their hands and said, look, you got to bring something, you have to answer for this. Because what we've seen with the algorithm, like you said, is, and we've seen this on TikTok, there have been news articles on this that the algorithm for TikTok analyzes you and it sees what you engage with, how much time you spend on various videos. So if a teenager is suffering from depression and they're drawn to other TikTok videos of kids with depression, or and we've talked about this on other episodes, that phenomenon of kids showing up at the pediatrician with Tourette's
Yeah.
symptoms, but they weren't classic Tourette's symptoms. And we found that they were picking it up from TikTok.
Right.
And so TikTok kept feeding them. And so Seattle Public Schools just said, hey, you got to do something, because we're spending money trying to fix the problems that you're creating. Here's a quote from the lawsuit. Defendants have successfully exploited the vulnerable brains of youth, hooking tens of millions of students across the country into positive feedback loops, there's the algorithm, of excessive use and abuse of defendants' social media platforms. Now, the interesting thing about this is, again, they're not saying you're responsible for what's being posted, because the illustrious Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, the 26 words that allow all the social media platforms to not be liable for what's posted on their platforms. They're not even addressing that. It is the way you've designed your platform to keep us coming back, that constant dopamine hit. So it's going to be fun to watch to see where this goes, because they've taken such an interesting, I think, creative way to approach a lawsuit. And what's really intriguing to me is, are other school districts going to jump on? Because we've seen this here in our own community, is schools are having to hire licensed counselors because the kids are just suffering mightily. So,
okay, I have one thing to say, because I'm in total agreement on all of that, and in keeping an open mind. Okay, it is going to be interesting to see how that goes. At some point, when do you say, okay, and I realize, though, the addiction of, and you keep going back, you keep going back, but when does any of that fall on the responsibility of the user or the student's parents monitoring their use? I mean, to me, that would be, if I were a big dog for the Meta or TikTok or whatever, that would probably be my first.
And I'm sure that'll be their first defense.
Yeah.
And look, we've seen this. We can set up a parent meeting to talk at schools
I know.
every night of the week, and we can advertise it, and we can use our best social media.
And 2 people will come.
And 3 people will come.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, so yeah, it's parents, it's a community. Yeah.
I agree.
It's the teacher in the classroom who, at the end of class, gives free time for the kids to pick up their phones out and play them.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Exactly.
It's.
But like you said, it's an interesting angle to take, is the idea of steering clear of the free speech aspect, which is where it tends to always come around to.
And you're never going to beat that.
And you're never going to beat the free speech. So to come back around to the actual impact.
I've never been a court watcher, but this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I agree.
A fun one to watch.
I agree.
So we'll keep our eyes out on that and give updates. Speaking of updates, if you think back to season 1, do you remember the email that I sent to our...
Oh, yes! Yes. Did you hear anything back?
To the Texas State Attorney General, who was up for re-election and may or may not have received a vote from me. If you're wondering if I ever got a response, that would be no.
Oh.
However, someone is calling me right now. And
Maybe
it's
not
up
that.
on,
It's not
no.
that. Okay.
She was waiting with bated breath. No. All right. Now, moving on.
Okay.
Remember, open minds. So, technology, we've always said, is neutral.
Yeah.
It's how it's used, right? Like you were saying, social media, it can be used for good, or it can be used to the detriment of one's mental health. So I want to discuss a couple of articles that we've run across where video games are being used for a different purpose other than entertainment.
And we are in the midst of gamers.
Yes.
We are in the room with gamers,
Yes. So this will be interesting.
we will be gentle with them.
We will be gentle with our words.
So the first article was about video games being used to treat mental health, be it depression and anxiety or ADHD. So money's being spent to help develop games. And what's interesting to me is we're, I guess, agreeing that all this technology or screens, video games, are changing the way our brains function.
True. Yes.
And we've been hearing that for a long time, is that it's rewiring our brain. We just don't know exactly how. And so now companies are taking that theory, is it a theory?
That's good.
That theory, and instead of just blindly affecting our brains, they're trying to target our brains and the part of our brains that are susceptible to anxiety, depression, and ADHD. Now, what do you think? We're open-minded.
Here's Okay, just thinking of like elderly people and things that there are games, on iPads or computers that help your mental, I could buy into this.
And one of the examples they gave in the article was for stroke victims, they were response time,
Yes.
It wasn't Donkey Kong or Mario Kart. Donkey Kong.
I was going to say,
way back.
I know. And why don't we have that in our lounge? We have Pac-Man, but anyway. So they were, it was more than luminosity, which everybody's heard of.
Yeah.
But it was watering plants with certain color, being given task-oriented and time response.
Right.
And they were seeing a good response from like stroke victims or elderly people who are, walking into an age of dementia. That's awesome.
It is awesome. The other thing, even with like the kids, because for some parents, you want to do anything you can to get your child any help possible, but you can't afford it. So this could be not in replacement of, but maybe in addition to, if you could, I don't know. I think I could see some positive aspects of this for sure.
Yeah, but man, that just brought up a huge slippery slope, because I think that mentality of I want to give my kid every advantage, I want to do whatever I can, is the exact reason why too many parents, that was critical, are not judgmental, but too many parents are getting the educational games way too early for their kids because they think they want to give them a leg up.
Give them an edge.
And I don't know. Okay, let's look at another game that's used for something other than entertainment, and this is way a left turn from entertainment. It was a game that I read about many years ago. It came out in 2016. It was called The Dragon Cancer, and it was created by two parents who had walked with their young child through cancer. And once their son died, they worked to create this game. And the purpose was they wanted to help caregivers and just other people. They wanted to help teach empathy through a game. So the first question is, can you teach empathy through a game?
No.
Mm-mm.
You really don't think so?
I was appalled at this. I listened to it, I read it, and no, you can't. You can try, and two, this is not a game. There was nothing about this that was a game to me.
And we'll put a link to this article in the show notes, and if you want, the article can be read to you, and as they read it, they play excerpts from the game, and it is, I'm just going to tell you, it's brutal. The game is caring for a little boy in a hospital who has cancer, and it's brutal. It did not do well, so I don't think, I get their intention, because they were probably inundated with people who said they couldn't imagine, and so this was their answer to, I can't imagine. Oh, if you can't imagine, let me help you. And I do see in some way a beauty in that, but I do think that it missed the mark. But here's one that hasn't missed the mark, and this is one that its purpose was to help people who are suffering with depression. And this was a game that's done really well. It's called Gris, Gris. It was developed by a Spanish company, and it is aesthetically beautiful. It is like art in a game. And so the idea is that Gris, the character, it starts out with Gris is sitting in the sculptured hand, and the hand starts collapsing, and Gris falls into this world that is lacking in color. And as you move her through the game, she's collecting stars. And the more stars she gets, the higher she gets above this colorless world, and the world becomes bright and beautiful.
I loved this one.
And I love this one because we were talking earlier, and I was saying you have the apps like Headspace and Calm and those type of things where it's auditory. You listen.
Oh, this is a visual.
It's
of
a
the same
visual.
Thing. Yeah.
It actually is, is both.
It's both because you get
the music.
Yeah, the music. I was going to say the music itself is very calming, but you get the visual aspect with it too.
And as her surroundings change, the music changes, and it's supposed to lift you up.
I don't know if you remember Siskel and Ebert, who would do the movie reviews.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they would give it, I would give this 2 thumbs up.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Open mind. Well, what about this? What about our video engineer dad? It's our last article. He created video games, a very successful video game company.
Oh, yeah.
And then he had 2 kids. And he started wondering, oh my God, what have I done? Because, and I want to read you this quote. This is a quote from him. He said, I hired product managers and engineers to track everything players did and analyze their behavior. Using the data we created, we experimented with every feature of our games to see which versions allowed us to extract the most time and money from our players. What did they do? They engineered it to keep our attention.
Yep.
And at the end of that, he sold the company and is now trying to make board games, apparently. You can read the article. We'll put it in the show notes.
Once he had the daughter, once he had the kids,
he
realized it was a different ball game.
So let's circle back to using video games to alleviate anxiety and depression. Because one of the articles that we looked at, the FDA, which approves medication, has approved a video game called Endeavor RX. You have to have a prescription to buy this game. It's really expensive. If you don't have insurance, it's something like $99 a month. And your kid plays it in an effort to help develop skills where they focus better on tasks at hand. What do you think? Open mind?
I was just going to say, you said we had to have an open mind on this, right? That was a bit.
And it's hard because I just read the book Empire of Pain, which is the story of the opioid addiction and the family that created that drug and how they manipulated the FDA and advertising. And so it makes you wonder about Endeavor RX.
Yeah.
And the drug industry doesn't have the greatest reputation to begin with. So when you start thinking about.
And I read somewhere something like 10% of humanity is going to be susceptible to addiction.
Of some form.
And so it's kind of a crapshoot when you introduce your kid to video games.
Well, and can I throw something in here just real quick? So part of one of the articles I was reading, did you read the excerpt about China?
Yes.
Not that we need to take our cues from China, but
fascinating.
I mean, they're calling it a spiritual opium.
That's what they called it.
They called it a spiritual opium.
And they're not allowing.
So the kids cannot do video games during the week, and they can only do 1 hour on the weekend or holiday. So what did the kids do? Our gamer friends, they started watching live streams of people playing games, of other people playing games. So now there's a new rule.
Yeah, you can't watch Twitch.
So I just,
it's hey, the jury's still out. We will keep watching.
Have to keep an eye.
And more and more money is being poured into this area. It's a developing story.
Ooh, there you go.
All right. So as we agree, technology can be used for good and it can be used for evil. Social media platforms can be used for good and can cause great damage to people's mental health. But here's my question. What's the best thing you've seen on social media, Ann-Therese?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the best thing I saw this week was...
I love this.
I know. So there's this 76-year-old painter, Scott Kahn, and he was basically this... closet painter all of his life. Nobody even knew of his art. Just a beautiful artist, but just nobody even knew about him. But he became friendly with this up-and-coming young artist. And as this younger artist, thing is Matthew Wong, as he became more famous, he began to use his Instagram platform to lift up Scott Kahn's art and bring attention to Scott Kahn's art. And so through his Instagram page, he started to feature some of Scott's work. And when he featured Scott's work, it garnered the attention of art collectors.
Oh, my word.
And just, all of a sudden, his art started taking off, and he started getting all of these inquiries about his art. So what ended up being his studio, which was stockpiled of years and years and years of art that just sat there, and maybe, once in a while, he sold one for a couple $1,000s if he was lucky. His latest art piece went for $1.2 million.
That's so amazing.
His studio is empty.
It's empty.
He has sold so much.
But that was because of one painter
Yeah.
who was putting the focus and sharing the spotlight to another.
Exactly. Sharing the spotlight, taking his platform and sharing
Yeah.
sharing it with
Using
somebody else.
social media to lift up rather than
Yeah.
build up your own kingdom.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, you remember the last thing that we do on a podcast is I ask you if this is a stupid idea. Here's my question. Nurses, and no shade on nurses. We love nurses. They do great work. But nurses and medical people on TikTok talking about the weird patients they had that day.
Please stop.
Now, all the ones I've seen, they've been very careful of all HIPAA, all that.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's wrong.
It drives me
It's
crazy because, a lot of people have great anxiety regarding going to the doctor. And so if you're on social media and you see over and over these medical professionals talking about the weird case they had today in the office.
I don't want to be the weird case that they're putting on TikTok.
I know. It makes me want to ask the nurse next time I go to the doctor, hey, can you promise me you're not going to talk about me on
Your social media.
on social media?
Yeah.
So,
No.
do we all agree?
We all agree.
It's a stupid idea.
It's a stupid idea, and it's just a wrong thing to do. Stop doing it if you're doing it.
All right. That's it. Look, we're back. Season
There you
2
go.
of the Think Before You Post podcast from our new studio.
Our new studio.
And maybe next time we'll give you a 360 view of our new home here because it's awesome.
It is great.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Look, you can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on any of your social media platforms. And we are back maybe once a week. We don't know. As the wind blows, we will show up in your feed. How's that?
Always a surprise.
Always a surprise. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.